All right, we got a football game tonight. It's Monday Night Football. The New York Giants hosting Seattle. And we're going to do a deep dive into that game a little later. Steve Merril will have a breakdown for you. Andrew McInnis will have a prop bet. And we've got so much more. Can't wait for Teddy's big B6s. That's coming up soon. But before we get into all of that, Bryan Leonard joining us right off the bat. Bryan, how are you? How was your weekend, my friend?
I'm doing very well. Like everybody else on Saturday, I think just about everybody on the site pretty much had had Syracuse, so my Saturday wasn't good. Sunday was great, 5-1. So it was a nice bounce back, and we're on here on Monday where there's actually one game being played today. But I'm going to give you. Talk a little baseball. I don't do the baseball show until Thursday. So I'm going to give you my series plays for the game starting out on Tuesday.
Well, let's get into some playoff baseball. Obviously, Monday Night Football tonight. We will break down that game a little bit later in the show. But when it comes to postseason MLB, your coverage starts right here on WagerTalk TV. And let's start with Tampa Bay and Texas. When we look at the series prices here, I'm seeing the Rays in the minus 155, minus 160 range over the Rangers. What do you want to do with Tampa and Texas?
Yeah, two teams I'm rooting for. I'd like to see these teams advance, but obviously only one can. I take a look at Tampa Bay against teams with a 500 or better record. The Rays were 48-44, respectable. The Rangers 42-45. Tampa's also won 9 more games this season than Texas did. And the Rays have a nice home field advantage. You wouldn't know that because of all the if anybody's ever been to that stadium in Tampa, you know why. But they're 53-28 at home. And they were also the better road team, winning 6 more games on the road than the Rangers. Texas is an impressive offensive team, no doubt about it. They reached double digits in runs 26 times this year. While Tampa's been very good offensively this year, the offensive edge clearly goes to the Rangers. The Rangers are one of the deepest lineups in all of baseball, and they've got the better offense in this series. But the Rays are not bad, and they've hit a lot of home runs this year, which they haven't done in the past. They're trying to pull the ball a little bit more this year, and some of the guys are really having a lot of success in that regard. But it's the Rays' pitching advantage that will advance this team to the next round. You look at the people that they have lost from the starting rotation. Shane McClanahan, who at one point was the odds-on favorite to win the Cy Young. Drew Rasmussen, who was terrific earlier this season. Even Jeffrey Springs, who came out of nowhere. He was very good this year. And none of the three will be in the playoffs. And it tells you something about how good this coaching staff, this coaching organization in Tampa has done for their pitching staff to be able to advance to the playoffs with those 3 guys out of the system. But we'll take Glasnow, Savali, and Eflin over anyone the Rangers can throw here. And the bullpen for Tampa Bay is stacked. And while that is a weakness for the Rangers, that's where this series is going to go. The starters are pretty good for both sides, especially for Tampa. But this bullpen for the Rangers, they brought in some players that haven't worked out. I believe they got a 5-run ERA in the last month. As a whole for the Rangers. That's the weakness here. Tampa Bay's bullpen is much better. And, take a look at the Rangers. They, too, have had some injuries from their starting staff on the season. Max Scherzer, currently gone. He's going to try to make it back. John Gray, very similar. Jacob deGrom, we know he's out. Can you imagine how good this Texas team would have been with a full season of deGrom and Scherzer? With this offense they have, they'd be the team to beat. But unfortunately, injuries happen. And in a 162-game schedule, that's going to ruin a lot of these teams. And you take a look at, for example, the Yankees. They were one of the teams that were going to contend, and they had so many injuries this year. Quickly took them out of that. So if you're looking to play on the Rangers on a game-by-game basis, I would only play them in the first 5. Use the first 5 option because that bullpen, you just can't trust them. The worst group of any team in the playoffs, the worst bullpen against what could be the best, one of the top 2 or 3 in Tampa. that's what makes Tampa the side in this one. And they do have the home field advantage. They get the advantage of playing the odd game at home. So we like Tampa in this series, and I expect this line to go up. I've seen 160, 165. So there's a lot of people agreeing with us in that regard.
When we look at these MLB series, we've got the Brewers as $2. We've got the Phillies as $2 favorites. Why do you think the markets gave Texas as much support as they did off the opener that Tampa's not a $2 favorite? Why do you think? I mean, because I expected Tampa to be in that range, and they're not.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with offense. People like the high-scoring teams, your Tampas and that, or excuse me, Texas in that regard. Yeah, I was surprised this line was as low, and there's some other teams that I'm surprised the line is as high as it is. We've got some pretty good teams. It would not surprise me, other than maybe Atlanta losing early in the playoffs. It would not surprise me really if any other team comes through, other than the one I'm going to speak about in the next game. I think is pretty lopsided in my regard, and that's another favorite that I think has some value.
Bryan Leonard joining us, everyone. You're watching Wager Talk Today, the best daily sports betting show on the planet. And we got a great show. Bryan already mentioned he's got another series bet coming up for you, and that's on the Milwaukee-Arizona series. Steve Merril joining us as well. He's going to talk Seattle and the New York Giants, and a big game for Alabama as they try to figure out a way back into playoff contention. Andrew McInnis, he's got a prop bet for us on tonight's game, and also a prop bet on Connor Bedard. Made an incredible dangle last night. Oof. Anyway, I digress. Bryan, let's get into your next game, and that is the Milwaukee Brewers at minus 205 against Arizona, who partied pretty hard. They were excited to make it to the playoffs. Always strange to watch these teams go crazy just when they get into the playoffs, but that's for another show. How do we bet this series?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that, and that's one of the reasons why I don't like Arizona in this series. The Brewers have won 8 more games than the Diamondbacks. Milwaukee won 6 more games at home. A big advantage for Milwaukee was how the team did against 500 or better ball clubs. Milwaukee was 51-38, while Arizona was 40-50. That's a big edge for this Milwaukee team. And along with the Marlins, these are the two offenses that have many question marks, and that's why a lot of people don't want to lay the $2 with Milwaukee, and I can understand that because that offense many times this season has not been very good, and so that's a major key here for these two teams is getting some type of offense. The Brewers will need to keep this young, fast D-backs team off the bases. That's the big advantage for Arizona in this series is the speed. If they're on, they've got a lot of guys that can steal. And I've watched a lot of Arizona. I'm a big fan of Arizona's team overall. I just think they're not ready for the playoffs. This is a team that was searching for next year to possibly make it to the playoffs. So I think they were a little surprised they got in. But from a pitching standpoint, we'll take this Brewers team over any team in baseball. Starting rotation of Burns, Woodruff, and Peralta. That reigns supreme in the majors. And we also love the bullpen. Williams, Piamps, McGill, Milner, and Uribe, who they brought up halfway through the season. These are guys that could strike anybody out at any time. And that's the big advantage here. Arizona finally has the closer they've been searching for. They brought him in later in the season. But we just don't trust the 6th, 7th, and 8th inning guys on this team. Very much like the game we just talked about, the series we just talked about with the Rangers with the bullpen. Arizona just doesn't have the bullpen to compete with Milwaukee. That's a huge advantage for the Brewers. And as you mentioned, we didn't like the way the regular season ended for Arizona, losing 4 straight and backing into the playoffs.
Yeah.
And to be totally honest with you, we really didn't like the way they finished off against the Houston Astros yesterday. Obviously the team comes out and they party, they jump in the pool, and it's a lot of fun, but it really isn't what I want to see when you've got Houston who needs to win the game to win the division. I think Arizona should have done a better job of bringing some other players other than one or two starters into play yesterday. I didn't think that was fair to the Texas Rangers. So now Texas has got to go into the wild card game as opposed to Houston. I didn't like that. I thought they should have come back and played at least half their starters in yesterday's game. So they didn't give a very good effort. Milwaukee's been pointing towards the playoffs all season. Well, like I said, Arizona is basically playing with found money here. That should show itself in these playoffs. Arizona, to me, with all the partying they did, they're very happy to get there, and they should be. I mean, they're in the playoffs for the first time in a while, and this team's got a bright future. But they don't have the same goals as Milwaukee does, and I think Milwaukee is a $2 favorite here. One of the few favorites that I think in this range has the ability to put out the fire of the younger team. We'll take Milwaukee minus $2, 205.
Bryan, what about the Jays? In 5 seconds, I'm asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend? Well, you threw me off right there because I'm not sure you have a friend. But we play. I couldn't. It's a coin flip. Okay, it's a coin flip. Yeah,
Bryan. Teddy, go ahead, my friend. And then
Bryan, I did want to ask you when we're talking about run differential. All right, there's two teams that enter the postseason with a negative run differential: Arizona and Miami. And it feels like the markets already just want to bet against those two teams based on that stat. Are you getting proper value fading the D-backs here? It feels like there's a party waiting to step in front of Arizona, a team that, as you mentioned, wasn't supposed to be here, but now they're kind of playing with house money. Sometimes those teams survive and advance in the postseason.
Yeah, sometimes they do. I mean, that's why they've got a 1 out of 3 chance of winning this game, and it's a situation where Miami I like a little bit better because Miami has the pitching. In fact, I think if you're going to look for an underdog in this first round, Miami against Philadelphia, I would take the underdog Miami there. To any team that can win a lot of close games like Miami does, like Milwaukee does, those are the teams that tells you that they've been playing really tough games all season long, and the bullpen has come in and done very well. A lot of people just don't pay enough attention to the bullpen, especially when you get to the playoffs, because you're only going to use your best players. They get the days off in between. So just look at the key players from the bullpens, and that's the concern I have for some of these teams is they just don't have it in the back end. But Miami's loaded when it comes to pitching, and they've really done a good job of bringing in some better power in that lineup this year. So it would not surprise me if they could knock off Philadelphia in that series.
Bryan, before I let you go, and I am going to ask you what you have to promote. It is Half Price Monday over at WagerTalk. Every package from every handicapper, half price. Bryan, I don't think a lot of people watched the Charlotte SMU game on Saturday. Teddy doesn't know where I'm going with this here. I did because I regretfully bet SMU. But given that I consider you such an incredible fashionista, a man who understands the trends of fashion, my question to you, Dan, please. What is that? I'm not judging here, but that's the coach of the Charlotte football team standing on the sideline. Any thoughts on his outfit? Is it new? Is it trending hardcore in America? Is it something I should start looking at wearing on a regular basis?
Are you asking me this question?
Yes.
All I could say is we will never get that 2 minutes back.
Teddy, thoughts on that outfit?
I definitely think you should wear an outfit comparable to that every day on the show. I think it's a good look for you. Yeah, just like that.
Just that one right there. Okay, well, Bryan, what do you got to promote?
Prez's got some muscles that would actually look better on him than it did on the coach. What I'm promoting is what I've given you. So no need to purchase that for me today. But I do want to talk hockey. And I know Lawrence likes to talk hockey. Number one lifetime since I've been handicapping hockey here at WagerTalk. We've got a great special up there for you right now. I really got a kick out of the girls in the office coming up with the coupon code puck off with an exclamation point. I asked her, I said, is that directed towards me? And she says, no, I just thought it was really funny. I said, well, I appreciate. So if you want to get a discount on my hockey service, $100 off on the season, use the code PUCKOFF with the exclamation point. Number one in all time here at Wager Talk, 162.36 units. It's just
Beautiful.
And NHL's been my sport the last few years. And make sure anybody who's betting hockey wants to get in on that.
Bryan Leonard, everyone. Teddy, before we get into your bad for the books, bad beats, and bad bets, Chris Lawrence, a very, very wise man, writes, without the Prez, I wouldn't watch the show. I'm pretty much here every day. And then Bam Golf writes, I'm with you, Chris. Prez is the man. Just wanted to shout out two incredibly intelligent, smart, wise, and likely very handsome listeners that we have with us. Teddy, this is my favorite segment, man. I get to kick back and listen to you regale us with bad bets, bad beats, and bad for the books. Go ahead.
It'd be nice if you actually knew the name of the segment, because that would actually make us believe that it was your favorite segment. It's 5 years I've been doing it. You don't know the name. So clearly it's not your favorite segment, but it's one of my favorite segments. I'm sure it's one of those for our audience as well. Let's talk a little bad beats, bad bets, and bad for the books. A recap of what happened this past weekend. And we got to start with the beats because there were some brutal ones. How about Northwestern plus 26.5 against Penn State? It's 10-10 at halftime. At 20-10 in the third, Northwestern went for it from their own 34. Didn't make it. Allowed a cheap touchdown as a result. Then they had a 22-yard punt with 9 minutes left. Another cheap touchdown, 40 yards. Still took Penn State 12 plays and converted a 3rd and 8, a 3rd and 6, and a 2nd and 18. All right, no biggie. Time's winding down. Northwestern's driving and they're covering. Oops. Interception, big return. One first down for Penn State. They're going to take a knee, but they ain't taking a knee. It's a passing touchdown, and now it's a 28-point margin, and the game is over. And speaking of game over, that late TD sent the game over 48, 41-13 final instead of 34-13. You had Northwestern, you had under. That was no fun. Utah State versus UConn. Not that they were the right side, but you're up 7, you're covering, and you give up the late touchdown. Now you got a chance in overtime. But no, you block the extra point. You win the game by 1. You take a knee. Utah State. That was no fun if you had them. UCF -8 against Baylor. They're up 35-7. Late third at home. First Big 12 game ever. Blowout, cruising, right side winner. Oops. 29-0 run out for Baylor. The 72-yard fumble return touchdown off a muff snap when they were -8. They're up 9 at the time in field goal range. Baylor wins outright. No fun for UCF backers. I think the worst one on Saturday came from Duke bettors. Duke was plus 5.5. They're winning outright with a minute to play, even after 2 missed field goals. They have Notre Dame in 4th and 16, and they can't get the stops. And Northwestern just trying for the game-winning field goal, but they break the play and they score a touchdown. Then, of course, they make the 2-point conversion, the most important point spread play in football, and Notre Dame gets the money against Duke. Ouch for Blue Devils backers. The 2 biggest NFL beats came in matchup of winless teams. Go figure. They can't figure out how to win. The Bears are +3. They're up 28-7 versus a team that allowed 17 touchdowns and no field goals since being up 21-3 versus the Commanders in week 2. What could go wrong? Everything for Chicago. 31-28 Broncos final. A brutal push for Bears backer. What about the Panthers? They're +4.5. They're up 13-7 late third quarter. They're driving again. Oops. Bryce Young fumble 6. Now, they're not up 13-7. Now it's 14-13. Minnesota has 1 nice drive to go up 8. Carolina, an 11-play drive, a 15-play drive to close the game. 0 points on either one. They lose by 8. Tough for Panthers backers. And let's not forget the Cardinals. It's a toe-to-toe with San Fran much of the day. They missed the 2-point conversion. Then San Fran scores a touchdown inside 2 minutes. Doesn't matter. Dobbs is taking them right down the field. Touchdown, Zach Ertz. Oh, he dropped it. Touchdown, 4th down. Oh, dropped again. San Fran -14. Good. And, of course, I was specifically asked to mention, I don't think it's the worst beat out there, but Dolphins over 2.5 extra points yesterday. That was no fun if you had it. 2 extra points by the 14 minutes of the second quarter, and then didn't get another one the rest of the way. A touchdown's called back, went for 2, the works. Bad bets. when it comes to bad bets on Saturday. Look, Cal took all the money, -9 up to -13.5. They won by 3 against Arizona State. Never sniffed a cover. Bad bet on Cal. Boston College, -3 up to -6 against Virginia. Virginia rallied to win that game. BC, a bad bet. Kansas, +17 to +15 against Texas, even though their quarterback's back. Or quarterback is out, I should say. Texas, really good. 40-14 final. The Jayhawks money was all wrong. And Florida took the money, +3 down to +1, even some pick'ems. They were blown out by halftime at Kentucky, lost 33-14. Bad bets in the NFL. Look, Saints money poured in. Derek Carr's going to play. Derek Carr hadn't practiced all week, and Derek Carr stunk. Saints money, no good. Patriots money flowed in. Cowboys haven't beaten anyone. +7 down to +6. Well, they beat someone. They beat them by 35. Patriots money all wrong yesterday. And Bengals were on all the parlay cards. Joe Burrow is back. Well, Joe Burrow is not back, and neither were the Bengals' run defense. They got bombed in Tennessee. Bad bets on Cincinnati. When it comes for bad for the books, look, we had a pretty ugly middle on Saturday. Iowa, Michigan State. Opened Iowa as low as -8, as high as -12. Bounced around all week, 9.5, 10, 10.5. The Hawkeyes scoring a punt return touchdown and a field goal after a fumble deep in their territory turns a tie game into a 10-point victory. The single worst possible result for the books. ESPN game Saturday night, Alabama crushes Mississippi State every year, and Alabama crushed Mississippi State again this year. -14 up to -16.5, -17 for the late TV game. That was a bad result for the house. On Sunday, look, the Jags were a lousy way to start Sunday. The pros were on them. The Joes were on them. My clients had them as a 5% big ticket. The Jags cash in with room to spare. And, of course, bad for the books. The money poured in on Baltimore with no Deshaun Watson for Cleveland. Money poured in on the Chargers with no Jimmy G for the Raiders. And, of course, they were betting against the rookie quarterbacks. 4-1 yesterday, betting against the rookie QBs, the only rookie QB to cover. C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, DTR, Aiden O'Connell, Anthony Richardson, all lose straight up and against the spread. There you have it, Lawrence. You got your chance to relax. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. Back to you, my friend.
Yeah, Daddy, all because I don't know the order of how you name your segment doesn't mean I don't love it.
It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. Literally, it hasn't changed in 20 years.
I'm complimenting your segment. Maybe you should shut up.
But you're actually insulting my segment because you can't remember the name of it. You compliment. It's like I'm complimenting your segment. It's like you're a great guy for a jerk.
Go put on a muscle shirt. Copy the Charlotte 70-year-old coach on the sideline. What's his name? You know the name of the Charlotte coach? I don't.
Healy.
Wow. That's impressive. There's a million bloody teams in that division, that sport. Way to win your 5%, brother. You were at a 5% on Jacksonville yesterday?
I did. So this past weekend was it was the good news, bad news weekend. The good news is we won the big plays. The bad news is we lost just about everything else. So it wasn't a great weekend by any stretch of the imagination. But the 5% big play came in on Sunday. The big play came in on Saturday. On a crappy weekend, I'd rather have the big plays come through than anything else. And then obviously they did on both days. What about you, Lawrence?
Yeah, so I had the similar situation on Saturday. I won my 5% play, but I lost. I went 1-3. I lost on Syracuse. I thought maybe we had that back door, and then they threw the interception. I lost on SMU. So yeah, it was a 1-3 college football day. But yesterday I went 6-2 in my NFL. I made a ton of units as well because I had a +150 prop bet that cashed. Just to let everybody know, if you're not betting Anthony Richardson to get a anytime running touchdown every game, I don't understand why you even bet. And he did. He got that for us. And I also won a +150 teaser. So I had a great day yesterday. And I actually have a play up tonight, a 4% best bet that you guys could get for half price, $12.50 over at WagerTalk. I am 7-2 in the NFL this week, so I am seeing it right. Guys, if you like what you're hearing, please take 1 second and hit the thumbs up button. 457 of you watching live right this second. Only 80 likes. We really would appreciate if you help us out and hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, etc., etc. And now we bring in one of the best Steve Merril. How are you, buddy? Thanks for hosting for me on Friday.
Yeah, enjoyed it, man. Anytime. Always enjoy hosting with you and Teddy, or vice versa, however it works. By the way, what you gave Teddy is called a backhanded compliment. So it's a semi-compliment. And then also the head coach of Charlotte, I got to get this name out to you guys, Biff Hoagie. Biff. Is that not a great name for a guy wearing a shirt like that? First name is Francis Xavier Hoagie.
Total sense now, dude. Now it has all come full circle.
Biff Hoagie right there, ladies and gentlemen. So look, this guy was a coach in high school for like 20 years in Maryland, was at Michigan last year as the associate. Just Google Biff Hoagie and click images, Prez, and you'll see him in the high school shirts wearing it at St. Francis. This is not a first-time occurrence. This guy's been rocking this for decades. Offensive lineman for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the late 70s. So he has the right to do it.
What doesn't Steve Merril know? Do we know the answer on how to... Do we know
this
the answer?
This is the beauty of Prez going off on tangents, Teddy, is I learn stuff and it gives me an extra 2 minutes to Google stuff. So this is the bonus. That's a backhanded compliment, by the way, to you, Prez.
Oh, firstly, I don't need any compliment from you. And secondly, you backhand me and I'll pull out the pipes.
Backhand you all day, son.
Seattle, you two want to gang up on me? I'm ready. Seattle and the Giants. Let's get into it. I'm not even going to set it up. Tell us how we should bet this game.
Yeah, I got to look at the side here because I do the Fade the Public video every week, and you talked about taking the second hit to click the like button, but don't forget to hit subscribe and the bell for instant alerts because you'll know when the Fade the Public goes live every week. We get it up Friday, sometimes Saturday. Got it up early this week on Friday afternoon, and the Monday night game did make the cut. And by the way, the public was very heavy on the Kansas City Chiefs last night. That was one of the most public plays of the week. Looking pretty good for the public when they were up 17-0, but then, of course, the Chiefs ended up winning but not covering by 3. And the public not quite as heavy on the Seahawks tonight, but they're once again fading the New York teams. In fact, they faded all 3 New York teams this weekend. The most public dog of the week was the Dolphins. We know how that turned out. I had a best bet for my clients on the Bills. I also had the Jets last night. I'm using the total tonight, so this isn't an official play, but I would lean towards the Giants here, and that's why I wanted to talk about it on the show. Some public sentiment on Seattle, and it's fully understandable why. The Seahawks, after that bad loss in the opening week against the Rams, who, by the way, have looked a lot better than maybe they had in previous seasons.
Yeah,
they have gone 2-0 straight up in ATS their last 2. Impressive road win at Detroit. And then also they beat up on the hapless Carolina Panthers last week. But now they're traveling cross-country. This will be their second of 3 road games in a 4-week span. And I know it's Monday Night Football. They'll be ready to play. But I think this is a decent spot for the Giants to steal a home win. And I do mean steal because this is a team that hasn't looked that good so far. Well, let's keep in mind the 2 games they were blown out were against Dallas and San Francisco, definitely 2 of the best teams in the league. The scrappy Arizona Cardinals, they did come from behind, a big deficit. I think they came in hungover. Offense obviously struggled in that Dallas game, but they did turn things on in the second half. I thought maybe that was the buy sign after week 2, but they just ran into a brick wall with San Francisco last week. I think this is a good setup here for them, and they can't afford to lose another game. Not that they're looking ahead to Miami next week, but this is a very important situation for them. By the way, I will point out Ralph Michaels sent this over to me before the show. Obviously, chart master, stat daddy. He did a NFL Myths preview preseason here that was on WagerTalk.com, and I hear this still, and I just wanted to spell it. We're not using the Giants tonight because of the NFL home dog angle, because you see from Ralph's research, it's been a losing proposition for almost 3 decades now, and this is something that worked really well in the 80s, maybe the 70s, the live Monday night home dogs, but it has not worked for quite a while. And if you exclude weeks 1 and 2, which I think makes sense because teams are so random those first 2 weeks, a Monday night home dog since 1998, week 3 on, are just 11-17, 39.5%. But once again, that's a small sample. Just wanted to point that out. That's not why we're on the Giants. Don't let your bar friends tell you always bet Monday night home dogs. But I think in this situation, boys and girls, there is some value with New York as the Fade the Public home dog tonight.
So I understand that the Giants have stepped up in class twice and not looked good. And then, they played basically 2 good quarters of football against Arizona, which was enough to get that victory. But the Giants were a team that every wise guy was spending the offseason betting against. We saw money come in on the Giants season went under. We saw money come in on the Giants not to make the playoffs. And Seattle was the exact opposite of that. Where the money came in all offseason, Seattle was a popular wise guy team. Seattle took money to win the division, make the playoffs, go over their win total, et cetera, et cetera. So here we are a month into the season, and we can't say, all right, it's only been a week or 2 now. We've seen the Giants have looked every bit as bad as those who were betting them under expected. And the Seahawks, with the exception of that one game, against the Rams, so really that one half against the Rams, the second half where they got annihilated, except for that half, they've looked every bit the team that was supposed to be pretty good. Isn't Seattle just better than New York? Like, forget the spot. Are the Giants good enough to beat a playoff team?
I think Seattle's borderline playoff team. They have played a little better than I thought they would this year, but coming in this season, I thought they were three teams in the NFC that vastly overachieved last season. I've talked about two of them quite often on the Wager Talk shows this summer. I had liked the Giants under the season win total. I believe I gave that out right here on the show a few months ago. Also talked about how the Vikings, 13-4, negative point differential, one of the most overrated teams in history. But the Seahawks, I thought, overachieved last year. Maybe they weren't overrated, but they definitely overachieved. Geno Smith had a fantastic season. So I think we really have two maybe play against teams here. I want to point out something I didn't mention earlier about turnovers. And I joke about this all the time. Give me the turnover margin for NFL and college football games. I could hit 60, 70% on the blind, never have to handicap again the rest of my career. Turnovers are pretty interesting with these two teams. Giants, 5 turnovers this season in 3 games. That's about average. They have not forced a turnover yet. 0 turnovers forced. Now, they might not be a good defensive team, and I don't think they are, but a lot of that's just random variance. Geno Smith doesn't throw a lot of picks, so I get that, but there's going to be a fumble here or there. Seahawks, meanwhile, 1 turnover total in all 3 of their games. So something's got to give. West Coast to East Coast trip, Monday Night Football under the lights. I think the Giants might actually get a little bit of a break on the turnovers tonight, and that also could be a reason they pull the upset.
Steve Merril joining us, everyone. Steve Gooseballs, who never gives me any love, but he writes, basically, if Steve read books, the book orator guy, he would listen to more books. So he's a big fan of your voice. Take that for what it's worth. Alabama, A&M. Alabama not only needs to win games, but they need to start smacking the crap out of teams. They're minus 2.5 in this game. How do we bet it?
First of all, thank you, Gooseballs. I'd read more books as well if I narrated them, so that would be a bonus for both of us. Second of all, we're not talking Alabama A&M. We're talking Alabama against Texas A&M. Had to mess with Prez a little bit there. I know this is a big game, guys. I'm going to be doing a spotlight video. Teddy and I do a few of these every week for college and pro football games, and this is one I'll be doing later this afternoon on Monday. So I'll have an in-depth, 4 to 5 minute breakdown of this one. I wanted to give all the viewers and listeners here of Wager Talk Today a sneak preview of what might be the biggest game this week. And A&M not even ranked, I believe, but I definitely could pull the upset. And the odds makers were telling us all we need to know about that, right? Field goal or less. And by the way, another reason I wanted to mention this early Monday is I like A&M in this game. Consensus line now probably is plus 2.5, but there are some straggler 3s out there still. So if you like Texas A&M, I'd grab that plus 3 now if you can still find it. If you like Alabama, minus 2.5s are definitely widely available as of Monday afternoon. Look-ahead line was as high as 7 or 8 from what I saw weeks back. So this has obviously been a little bit of an adjustment. And of course, Alabama lost to Texas. As Teddy said earlier in the show, Texas has looked very good this year, and I agree. Yeah. Everyone thinks Bama finally showed up last week with that 40-17 win against Mississippi State, but they didn't even run or pass for 200 yards on either side. They had 193 and 164. Turnovers, ding, ding, ding. Once again, turnovers make a difference. An 0-3 turnover edge, including a pick 6 in that game. Alabama's a good defensive team still, but A&M is a really good defensive team as well. Alabama's allowing 4.4 yards per play. A&M's giving up 4.5 on the season. Alabama's struggling offensively, as I mentioned. 32 points a game, very misleading. They're averaging just 5.8 yards per play against teams that have allowed 5.6. That's barely above average when you factor in opponents. A&M's giving up 4.5, as I mentioned, but they're averaging 6.5 on offense. We talked about play against teams this year in the NFL, teams that overachieved. Well, I like to look for underachievers in college football and play on them in September. And the 2 I named coming in at the start of the season were Oklahoma and Texas A&M, 2 teams that had national title hopes last year that were barely 500. Actually, A&M was a 5-7 team. But here's how underachieving they were. They went 3-1 last year against ranked opponents. They're only lost by 4 points at Alabama this week a year ago. They went 2-5 against unranked opponents. So this A&M team had a lot of talent last year. They've got more this year, and they're a play-on team at 4-1 straight up in ATS. And I think they're definitely a live dog here, especially at plus 3 or more on Saturday.
Texas A&M plus the points. Steve Merril says they are live against the Crimson Tide this coming weekend. Mr. Merril, you have a promo code you want to talk about. What do you have to promote, my friend?
Yeah, I mentioned the standalone NFL and college football videos. I usually give a sneak peek, and those are the promo for the week, but this is the first time it's been released, so you can take advantage right here on WagerTalk Today. 7 days, all access for just $79. Steve 7, just over $11 a day. So Steve 7, STEV, the number 7, gets you 7 days and nights of football and baseball. That's all college and pro football and the baseball playoffs that start tomorrow. 7 days and nights for just $79, but you got to have that promo code, Steve7, wagertalk.com.
There we go. Steve Merril, outstanding. I'm talking to Andrew McInnis on Slack. He's got a 5% play tonight in NFL. It's half price. We'll talk about that in a second. Teddy, we got 10 minutes because you got to warm up for the opening line report, one of the best shows we have going on our channel. So, brother, you got a big game breakdown, and then we got Andrew McInnis. Let's get into it.
I certainly do have a big game breakdown. Let's talk Clemson. Let's talk Georgia Tech and Miami. College football Saturday. Right now, look at the WagerTalk live odds screen. Miami minus 21. Total, let's call it 58.5 against Georgia Tech. And look, this one's easy, right? Miami's got top 10 talent. They're executing this year. Georgia Tech has no defense. They have a spotty offense. They got bombed in their last road game at Ole Miss. They got lucky with turnovers against Wake, and Wake stinks. And they won by 2 touchdowns in a game they lost the box score. And they got bombed in their last home game against Bowling Green, led 14-0, and then allowed 38 unanswered at home to a MAC team. Easy. Miami only, right? Well, as Lee Corso would say, not so fast, my friends. Georgia Tech got caught an ACC sandwich last week, off Wake, with this game on deck. And that was an embarrassing loss. You want the team off an embarrassing loss, just like you want it in the NFL. You know, hungry and motivated. You know, Brent Key as a head coach for Georgia Tech. As anyone who saw the game knows, it was an embarrassing display of football on our part. As epic of a failure as you can possibly have. All 3 phases, all aspects of the program didn't succeed. It's on me to make changes to get this thing fixed. Was not even close after the first 2 possessions. Inconsistency from week to week is not acceptable. We have a motivated Georgia Tech team this week. They got a pretty good quarterback in Haynes King, 15-4 touchdown interception ratio, 8.9 yards per pass attempt. Their top 2 backs have averaged both better than 5 yards per carry. They got playmakers on the outside. The offense is decent. There are things to like about Georgia Tech, including the motivation. Now, Miami, 4 blowout wins to open the season. You know, Texas A&M, the only quality competition, but Miami was impressive in that ball game. Both sides of the football, they scored 38, 41, 48, 48, and then a bye week. After this game against Georgia Tech, they have North Carolina, and then Clemson. During the bye, how much do you think they're focused on Georgia Tech, who just lost to Bowling Green at home, and how much they're worried about North Carolina and Clemson? Miami's last winning season against the spread as a home favorite, 2016. It's been a while in this role. Cristobal in the 40% range long-term as chalk. These two teams play every year. 9 straight meetings were decided by 17 or less before last year. Last year, Miami won by 21. They got to win by more than 21 this time around. I think it's too many points. Take my chances with Georgia Tech plus the 21 at Miami. Hold your nose and bet it type of underdog. I think they hang. There's your big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Prez.
Teddy covers. Great stuff, man. We got 7 minutes left to go. What are they going to be hearing on the opening line report?
We're going to go through all 16 NFL games, talk about where the numbers opened, where they were projected to open, where they've moved, and where they're projected to move. So if you want hardcore NFL content Monday mornings or Monday afternoons for those of you back east, stay tuned right here on WagerTalk TV.
And guys, tomorrow Teddy and I will do a buy and sell on a bunch of NFL teams. If you want to hear any in particular, please put it up in the comment section after the show goes live. Ask us which teams you want us to discuss. And I promise you, if you put a team up there, we will discuss it. Teddy, one of our listeners, and I know you're like, we're hard up against it, but promoting you is important. Ben Richards, he wrote, saw Teddy on a TV show with some other bettors. What is the show called? Why don't you tell us about that show real quick, and we'll bring in Andrew McInnis after.
Sure. The show's called Beat the Odds. It's on hundreds of affiliates around the country, as well as right here in Las Vegas. You can find it on the Nest Network. the Yes Network. And I do the show with Fat Jack Ross, Dave Hall, Mariah Janos, and Brandon Marshall, the former NFLer. We tape every week on Thursday, and it plays over the weekend. So check your local listings. Just check out beattheoddstv.com.
Guys, Fat Jack, if Teddy had an adjective, what would it be? If I had an adjective, what would it be? Tell us in the comments section. You know, handsome Prez, annoying Teddy, that kind of a thing. Andrew McInnis, what up, brother? 5%
What's going on, guys?
tonight in the NFL. A little bit nervous or excited? I'm always excited about it. And then it starts, and I'm like, I don't want to say, it's too much stress for me.
I get that. You're like excited all day for it. And then once the game starts, it's like, well, you can't really enjoy it as much as you would have if you just had no play on it. But I'm feeling pretty good. 2-0-1 day yesterday. And the push that I had, guys, Broncos -3. So that's a push I'll forever be grateful for. And it was a learning day for me as well yesterday. I'm trying to learn to be grateful for the wins and not just regret not putting out more stuff. You guys talked about it like your short lists. I think it was like last week. Do you cheer against plays you didn't release that are doing well? I don't, because it feels good to be right. So it was a 2-0-1 day, but a lot of my leans went well yesterday, and pulling the trigger on a 5% play tonight.
Nice.
Let's
Teddy?
talk about Darius Lawrence. Yes? Yes, Lawrence.
I said Teddy as in I was throwing to you.
Right. So the thing you sent to me in Slack, which is you asked to follow up, you just forgot in the 20 seconds between when you sent it to me and then you started talking after you finished talking. Are you that old that you forget stuff?
Yes.
Like you literally typed it, finished typing, and then started talking, which was the exact opposite.
Andrew, I don't think you're required anymore,
Andrew,
bro.
let's talk about Darius Slayton, the Giants wide receiver. The over-under receiving yards for this evening, 40.5. Do we like him over or under against the Seahawks pass defense?
I like him over 40.5 receiving yards here, Teddy. I mean, looking at the first 3 games that the Giants had to start out their season, obviously the Cowboys, the Cardinals, and then the Niners. You know, not really an easy start for them as far as their schedule. And of course, they had to have that big comeback in a game that was supposed to be easy against the Cardinals. Now, this is that game against the Cardinals was the only one that Slayton actually went over this number in, or actually put up some decent numbers, I should say. But I feel like this is going to be an opportunity against the Seahawks secondary that's not done very well. 2 injuries to the corner position, and a team that actually ranks really, really down there in the bottom of the league in passing defense, actually close to the Broncos. So that should tell you that's something pretty bad. Daniel Jones has gone over his pass completions prop in 2 straight games, pass attempts prop. This is a team, especially with Barkley being injured, that's throwing the ball a ton. And I do expect them to take advantage of those injuries that the Seahawks do have in their secondary. Slayton's averaging 12 yards per catch. In his last 2 games, he has at least 6 targets and earning a 19% target share. Looking at things right now with a total at 47, I expect him to be targeted heavily, him to be a big part of the game. And I see this as kind of a buy low spot here. I feel like he's going to get better touches, start doing better. But you see the matchups he had against the Cowboys and Niners. And like I said, the only game he's really played well in so far was that game against the Cardinals. But things should get better in this matchup. This is a Seahawks team that allowed 300-plus yards to both Andy Dalton and Jared Goff. I feel like if Daniel Jones even plays average and somewhat mistake-free football, getting 41 yards here from Slayton shouldn't be too difficult. So I'll take Darius Slayton over 40.5 receiving yards.
Andrew McInnis, a hockey machine, really built his reputation on the back of hockey, and he's got a prop bet for us on Connor Bedard. Do you see the dangle last night?
Yes. No finish, though. No finish.
It felt like he didn't even try finish. He felt like you have seen the most amazing dangle, and I'm in like game 2. I don't want to finish. I'll show you the finish in the regular season. It was spectacular. Anyway, you have 1 minute. What's your prop bet?
Well, look, similar to Victor Wembanyama in the NBA, Connor Bedard is the future of the NHL. Everyone's talking about this kid. The NHL is marketing him as much as they possibly can. But here's the deal with a first overall pick. They go to the worst team. Teams tank in order to get these players. And as talented as Connor Bedard really is, he's going to now go up against guys like Roman Josi, Victor Hedman, Cale Makar, the top defenseman in the league. He is immediately being placed on the top line with the Chicago Blackhawks, probably being a top 3 player on this team already in his first year here in his rookie campaign with the Blackhawks. Looking at Sidney Crosby when he came into the league, he played with Mario Lemieux. He got 39 goals, excuse me. Connor McDavid, when he came into the league, he got injured, but he scored 14 goals in his rookie year and a handful of games before he had his injury. There's a lot of pressure on this kid to be the guy. And I'll tell you what, for everybody out there looking to bet on this guy to the over, I would bet over on his point prop. But to ask him, especially a guy at his size, to transition to the NHL against number 1 pairing defenseman on the worst team in the league, where all eyes will be on him to get 32 goals, I'm not buying it here, Prez. I think these number 1 overall picks have so much pressure coming into it. He's great. I saw him play internationally here in Halifax this past winter at the World Juniors, but it's not something I'm looking at here. I like the under. I wish him the best, but that is a big number for rookie year.
I agree 100%. And when people point out, oh, well, Matthews put up 40 in his rookie, Matthews had a stacked lineup around him. Andrew, outstanding stuff, man. Best of luck tonight on your 5% play. We've promoted. We've done everything. You're wonderful. Go back and take a look at your face at the beginning of the segment when Teddy started bitching me out. It's classic. Anyway, Theodore.
Wait, hold on. You got to tell me what happened. You got to tell. Did I look uncomfortable?
Like,
did I look?
You were like, oh God, again. Oh God. Why always am I stuck with those 2 idiots? Teddy, take us home.
Thanks, guys.
Sure, that's going to wrap it for the Monday edition of Wager Talk Today. We'll do it again tomorrow, same time, same channel, 9 a.m. here on the left coast, noon for you back east. Stay tuned right here on Wager Talk TV for the opening line report. Myself and Drew Martin at the top of the hour, 13 minutes from now. And of course, enjoy the games and best of luck with your wagers this evening. Cheers.